Do you really think you deserve what your sister gets? My mother said that while behind me, the band had just switched to the toast song for my sister's $250,000 wedding at the Ritz-Carlton. 200 guests stood up and applauded. Crystal chandeliers threw light across the floor. White flowers covered the tables. The sound of knives and forks tapping gold-rimmed china clicked and clinked. I stood at the edge of the ballroom in an $89 black dress from Nordstrom Rack, and in my hand was a thin envelope. 20 minutes earlier, I had asked my mother, "Can you help me and Marcus the way you helped her?" She did not answer right then. She waited until the cameras started flashing near the stage, then put a $500 check into my hand. "This is your share," she whispered. I did not leave because of $500. I left because of what she said after that. Said straight to Marcus's face. The man who later helped me build everything she once insisted I would never have. I folded the check, my nails pressed into the edge of the paper, and I remembered that, in this house, Meredith was always the future. At Sunday dinners, the first question was almost always the same. How was the hospital this week? Meredith set her napkin on her lap and talked about her shift, about a conference in New Haven, about the upcoming board exam that cost $1,200 per attempt. My mother nodded nonstop, remembering the chief attending's name exactly, repeating the 9 gigapascals, repeating the board exam schedule too. My father sat at the head of the table, cutting his meat slowly, asking a few more questions so she could explain more clearly. He remembered her exam calendar down to the exact week. When guests came over, my mother introduced Meredith first. "This is my oldest daughter, a future doctor, Johns Hopkins." She always said it loud enough for the living room to hear. Even for someone standing in the kitchen, I was usually in the kitchen. I chose to study marketing. When I said that decision in my own kitchen, my mother was washing vegetables. The water ran steadily. She did not look up right away. "What do you do in that field?" I said. "Media, branding, strategy management, product promotion." She nodded. "Sounds fine, but it is not very stable." She kept washing vegetables. The water kept running. I stood there a few more seconds and went back to my room. Meredith's tuition season came every August. $45,000 a year, not including housing, insurance, and books. My mother sat at the dining table, opened her checkbook, checked the number twice before signing. She used the same blue pen. My father asked if anything was still missing. My mother said, "You cannot be careless when you are investing in the future." She said that 4 years in a row. When I mentioned an advanced marketing course that cost $1,800, my mother asked how much. I said the number. She said, "Think it through yourself. Do not waste it." She signed a $45,000 check. When I said $1,800, she put the pen down. Meredith was often late because of her shifts. We waited. My mother never ate first. When she walked in, everyone looked up. My mother pulled out her chair, asked if she was tired, if she had slept enough. She set her phone on the table and talked about a difficult case that lasted 5 hours. I said I had just finished a freelance project. 3 months, $6,500. My mother asked if that client had a long-term contract. I said not yet. "We were testing," she asked. "When will you have a real job?" She asked that again the next week. And the week after that, once a relative asked what I did. I had just opened my mouth when my mother answered for me. "She works in marketing. It is fine, but it is not stable." The relative nodded and turned to ask Meredith more about her specialty. I sat there cutting the slice of cake on my plate into even pieces. I was not hungry. I just needed my hands to stay busy. My father folded his napkin. Meredith kept talking about her shift. I set my fork down. $45,000 a year. $1,800 was a waste. Not stable. Meredith's wedding was held at a 5-star hotel in Hartford. The budget was $250,000. The guest list had 400 people. My mother held a thick planning binder. Adjusted table 1, reminded the manager not to block the camera angle. She told the event manager. "Lower table 1 by 3 inches. Do not block the camera's line of sight. I do not want to lose the main shot." The manager nodded immediately. Staff wearing headsets moved back and forth like a military operation. You cannot be careless when investing in the future. I had heard that sentence for 4 straight years when my mother wrote $45,000 checks each year for Meredith. Today, that sentence seemed scaled up. Meredith walked down the staircase in a custom-made gown that cost nearly $20,000. My mother adjusted the veil behind her. Stand up straight. The photographer is shooting. My father shook hands with a group of the groom's business partners. Today is my oldest daughter's day. He said that 3 times within 1 hour. I was seated at table 28, the last table before the service area. On the table was a place card with my name. My card was smaller than the ones at the front tables. I flipped it over once and set it back down. The distance from my table to the stage was almost 25 meters. I knew because I counted my steps when I walked past. A relative sitting next to me asked what I was doing these days. I said I did marketing for a small hotel, handling social media communications. The person nodded. Oh, then turned to ask Meredith whether she had booked her honeymoon in the Maldives or Bora Bora. When it was time for the toast, the MC invited both sets of parents to speak. My mother took the microphone and said, Meredith had always known what she wanted. She deserves the very best. She said it twice. Deserves the very best. Her words echoed through a $12,000 sound system. The guests applauded. The main course was served. The tables in front were already cutting their steak, forks tapping against china. My table was served later, when the plates in front had already cooled. The server placed my plate down and said softly, Sorry, your table was served a little later. I nodded and said nothing. In the middle of the reception, my mother walked around the tables like a sponsor checking an investment. She stopped at my seat and placed her hand on the back of my chair. You are sitting here. I said yes. She handed me a cream-colored envelope. Take it, she said. I asked, what is this? Open it and you will see. I opened the envelope right there at the table. A check, $500. The number written neatly in blue ink. No memo line? I looked up at her. She spoke in an even tone. Quiet enough not to make a scene, but loud enough for the person next to me to hear. This is all you deserve. I asked. What did you just say? She gave a small shrug. I invest in the right place. The right place. $45,000 a year. $250,000 for a wedding. $500 for me. Then she turned and walked quickly toward the stage where Meredith was getting ready to cut the cake. At the front, the photographer asked everyone to move closer for the family photo. Meredith, stand closer here. Dad on the left, the groom on the right. I stood in the back, outside the main frame, only half my shoulder visible. A server offered me more wine. I shook my head. When it was time to cut the cake, my mother stood beside Meredith and adjusted her hand on the knife. Be careful not to stain the dress. The guests cheered. One of Meredith's friends leaned over and asked me, This wedding must have cost a fortune. I said I heard around $250,000. The person whistled. Your family really invests big. I did not respond. I folded the check and put it in my wallet. No one asked what I had received. No one mentioned the envelope again. As if it did not exist. As if I did not either. When the band started the final dance song, the guests crowded toward the front. I stood up and walked out into the hallway. A hotel staff member asked if I needed a car called. I said yes. I stepped outside. Cold wind hit my face. Through the large glass windows, I saw my mother laughing with a group of guests, her hand resting on Meredith's shoulder. The car pulled up to the entrance. The driver asked my name. I told him. When the car pulled away, I took the envelope out and looked at the number one more time. $500. I folded it and put it back in my wallet. Behind me, the hotel was still lit up. $250,000 lit up. The music faded as the car turned the corner. I felt very clear. I did not argue with my mother. I did not say another word about the $500 envelope. The morning after the wedding, I woke up early and folded the black dress back into its bag. I checked out of the hotel. The receipt showed a total of $312 for one night. I kept that paper in my wallet. I drove back to my rental apartment. Marcus was sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee that had already gone cold. He looked at me and asked, Are you okay? I set my bag down. I want to leave. He did not ask where. He asked when. Within a month, he nodded. Okay. No arguing, no comforting, just action. I started by cutting the ties. The first tie was the car. An $18,000 loan, $312 a month. My father had co-signed. I called the bank Monday morning. I want to refinance and put it under my name only. The bank employee asked why. I want to take responsibility for myself. They sent a list of 7 required documents, 6 months of income statements, freelance contracts, on-time payment history, credit report. It took 2 weeks. The day I received the confirmation email, I looked at the words, "Co-signer removed." I deleted the old message my mother had sent. Do not forget who signed for you. The second tie was money. I opened a new savings account with an initial balance of $300. Every freelance project I transferred $500, $800, $1,200 into it. I stopped accepting any support. When my mother called to ask if I needed help with tuition that month, I said no. She asked, "Are you sure?" I said, "I am sure." The call lasted 2 minutes. Marcus looked for jobs in Austin first. He sent applications for 3 weeks, tracked every company in an Excel file. The last column marked response, no response, rejected. I looked for an apartment, a 32 square meter studio on East Riverside, $1,050 a month in rent, $1,000 deposit, 12-month lease. I looked at the remaining money in our joint account, $4,200. Marcus asked, "How much do we have left?" I turned the screen toward him. 4,200. He did the math in his head. 3 months if we do not get work right away. I said then 3 months is the deadline. No plan B, no relatives waiting. Just $4,200 and a new address. We sold what we could. The old couch went for $180 in cash, the coffee table for $40, a bookshelf for $25. I put the money into an envelope and wrote on it in black ink, "Austin Fund?" 1 week before we left, my mother called, "Are you coming to dinner this weekend?" "No." "What are you busy with?" "I am getting ready to move." 4 seconds of silence. "Where?" "Austin. Do you know anyone there?" "No." "Then why move?" "To start over." She exhaled softly. "Have you thought this through?" "Yes." The call ended after 1 minute and 58 seconds. My father texted afterward, "Do you need any help?" I replied, "I can handle it." He sent a thumbs up emoji. Nothing else. The morning we left, Marcus loaded 2 suitcases into the trunk, a box of books, a small kitchen box. I locked the apartment door and left the key in the mailbox as agreed. Before leaving the city, I opened the banking app again. Balance, $4,200. I took a screenshot, not to post, just to remember where I started. The drive was nearly 2,000 kilometers. We stopped at the 3rd gas station at 3 p.m., bought coffee and sandwiches. Marcus said, "If it does not work, we will figure it out." I said okay. There was no specific backup plan, only the decision. When we reached Austin, it was already dark. The studio was smaller than in the photos. The wood floor scratched. The window looked out over a parking lot. I set the suitcase down in the middle of the room. Marcus opened the empty refrigerator. "We will go to the grocery store tomorrow." We sat on the floor because we did not have any furniture yet, ate the rest of the sandwich. I texted my mother. "We made it," she replied 23 minutes later. "Okay, take care." She did not ask for the address, did not ask for the apartment number, did not ask if we needed anything. That night I lay on an $89 air mattress, listening to cars passing outside. My phone did not buzz. No one called telling me to come back. I placed my phone face down on the table. The next morning at 8:04, I opened my laptop, created a new file, title Austin Clients. The first line I typed, starting from $4,200. The first months in Austin had nothing cinematic about them, just $1,050 in rent taped to the refrigerator door and a spreadsheet always open on my laptop. I freelanced for anyone who paid on time. A coffee shop needed its website copy rewritten. A nail salon wanted regular Facebook posts. A small hotel needed new photos for its booking page. I took all of it. During the day, I sat at a folding table against the wall. At night, I answered client emails on my phone. Marcus worked the morning shift and came home to find me still editing content. "Any progress?" he asked. "Another 3-month contract," I said without looking up. "How much?" "Not big, but they pay on time." He nodded and opened the refrigerator. Took out leftovers from the day before. No one mentioned the balance in the bank account anymore. We both knew it was thin. My first big contract in that city came at the end of that year, a boutique hotel renovation project. He said on the phone, "I need a marketing strategy before the grand opening. Can you handle it?" "I will send the proposal today," I said. That night I drafted a 12-page proposal. 3-month plan, $5,000 flat fee, $1,750 deposit. Derek agreed. He handed me the deposit check. I held it a little longer than usual. "When do we start?" I asked. "Next week," he said. I took a photo of the check before depositing it. That night, I set my phone down and told Marcus, "This is the first real client in this city. That is momentum," he said. 2 weeks later, an email from the bank arrived. The check had bounced due to insufficient funds. I read the email 3 times. I called Derek, no answer. I sent a message, no reply. 3 days later, he texted back, "The project is on hold. I will reach out later." No apology, no explanation. Marcus walked in and saw me staring at the screen. "What happened?" he asked. The check bounced. He was quiet for a few seconds. "How much?" $1,750. He looked at the spreadsheet. I opened the banking app. About $700 left. "Then we adjust," he said. "Okay." No one raised their voice. No one blamed anyone. That night I sat in front of the spreadsheet and crossed out every expense we could cut. No eating out, no buying anything extra, no renewing any service we did not absolutely need. Marcus said, "If we have to, I will pick up extra hours." "Let me try one more round first," I said. He nodded. In 1 week, I sent out more than 40 outreach emails offering my services. A few people replied. Most did not. I called 2 former clients. "I am expanding my services right now. If you need support again, I can send a new proposal." 1 declined. 1 agreed to a trial call. I did not mention the bounced check again. A few weeks later, I filed the paperwork to register the company in Texas. The fee was $300. Marcus looked at me as I entered the payment information. "Are you sure?" "I need a clear structure," I said. The certificate was sent by email. I went to print it at an office supply store near the apartment. The printer jammed once and I had to ask an employee for help. "Are you starting a company?" she asked. "Yes." "Good luck," she said. I paid for the copies and took the paper home. I pinned the certificate to the wall next to my desk. Beside it was the $1,750 check that had bounced. I kept it instead of throwing it away. Marcus stood behind me. "Why keep it?" "To remember." "Remember what?" "To verify before I trust." He smiled slightly. "At least it is ours." From that day on, every morning I worked under those 2 pieces of paper, one with the name of the newly formed company, one with the bounced check. When a new client emailed, I replied immediately, "Can we pay after completion?" "No," I said. "Deposit first." When someone declined, I saved their name on a list to follow up later. The first month's revenue was low. The second month slightly better. Some weeks I signed no contracts. Some days only a few $100s came into the account. Marcus would glance at the wall sometimes. "Anything changed today?" he asked. 1 new client agreed to a deposit. I said, "How much?" "Not big, but real." He nodded. By the end of that year, my savings account was back to where we had started. I did not say anything when I saw the number. I just updated the spreadsheet. The bounced check was still on the wall, no longer a shock. Just a reminder. One evening, Marcus looked at me and said, "You know no one here calls you unstable?" I closed my laptop. Here I am, not waiting for anyone to validate me. The next morning, I sent a proposal for a larger project. This time, I added a clear clause on the first line. Payment before work begins. I met Lorraine at a networking event downtown. The meeting room was rented by the hour. Cold coffee sat on the table. About 20 people were seated in a circle. Each person had 2 minutes to introduce themselves. When it was my turn, I said, I recently opened a marketing company focused on boutique hotels and local restaurants. I work based on performance, not inspiration. No one clapped, no one reacted strongly, they just took notes. After the event, a woman with short hair, maybe in her early 50s, walked up to me. I am Lorraine, she said, handing me her business card. If you want to talk seriously, send an email. She said nothing else. I emailed her that same night, no long story. Just numbers and a request to meet. She replied with a 30-minute appointment at a coffee shop on West 6th. I arrived early with my laptop and a printed copy of my latest metrics. Lorraine sat down and skipped small talk. Do you have data? She asked. I turned my laptop toward her. Traffic growth, engagement rate, direct booking conversion, ad spend compared to revenue. She reviewed each line. What percentage is ad spend of total revenue? It depends on the campaign, on average under 15%. Customer return cycle? 2 to 3 months for smaller hotels. She nodded. No praise, no smile. If you can prove the money coming back is more than the money going out, people will listen to you. Then she wrote down the name of a group of local hotel owners on a napkin. They have a meeting next month. You get 5 minutes. Only talk about results. Do not tell an inspirational story. They do not buy inspiration. They buy profit. I went home and reopened my slides. Marcus sat beside me. You are talking too fast, he said while I practiced in front of the mirror. I have 5 minutes, I said. Then use the full 5 minutes. Do not try to prove too much. I revised the content, cut the long explanations, kept only costs, revenue, growth rate. The meeting took place in a private room of a restaurant downtown. About 40 people attended, mostly small hotel owners and restaurant managers. When I was introduced, I stood up with the clicker in my hand. In the first 90 seconds, my hand trembled slightly. I said a boutique hotel increased direct bookings by more than 40% within 2 months after optimizing its online channels. Slide changes. Advertising costs account for less than 15% of the additional revenue. The slide changes. A local bar increased its weekend traffic with a targeted campaign within a 3-mile radius. No one asks what my family thinks. No one asks if I am sure. They ask, what is the minimum contract term? How many weeks is the rollout? How does payment work? I answer each question. After I sit down, 3 people place their business cards on the table in front of me. Send me a proposal this week. I want to see the details on the 3-month package. Can you work with my current team? I nod and type notes into my phone immediately. 3 months after launching the company, I have 4 clients paying a fixed monthly retainer. No more one-off projects. No more vague deposits. Average revenue is about $22,000 a month. I open the spreadsheet, review operating expenses, rent, advertising, what is left. Marcus looks over my shoulder. So it is stable. Not exactly, I say, but it is moving in the right direction. We do not buy a new table. We do not change cars. We just increase savings. Lorraine sends an email. Progress. I reply with the updated numbers. She responds. Keep going. No emoji. No good luck. Just work. One morning, I walk into a small hotel office to present the new quarter strategy. I sit at the head of the table. The printed contract is in front of me. We would like to extend for another 6 months, the hotel owner says. Payment terms stay the same, I reply. He nods and signs. I sign after him. No one asks when I will get a real job. When the transfer notification appears, I open the banking app, watch the number increase, then close it. No more screenshots. No need to remind myself where I stand. I send invoices, track payments, prepare the next campaign. Marcus looks at me one evening while I am working. You know, he says, no one here calls you unstable. I do not answer. I just open the slides for next week's presentation. And keep working. 1 year after I printed the company registration at an office supply store, my spreadsheet looks completely different. I no longer have to count every $100. I have 12 long-term clients, clear contracts, fixed payment schedules. Every month I send invoices on the exact date, track payments when they come in, follow up if they are late. At the end of the first year, I open the annual report and read the number 3 times. $480,000 in gross revenue. Not profit. I subtract employee salaries, software, taxes, advertising. What remains is not excessive, but it is a number I created myself. I take a screenshot and send it to Marcus. He replies, "So it is real." We leave the small studio on East Riverside and move to a 2-bedroom apartment on South Lamar. I dedicate one room as an office. A real desk, a real chair. No more sitting on the floor. I hire 2 full-time employees. "Welcome to Who It Creative," I say at the first meeting with Becca and Will. Becca handles content. Will handles design. I handle contracts and strategy. Every morning I open the office door, turn on the lights, check the meeting schedule. The work has its own rhythm. When cash flow becomes more stable, I sign a lease for a small office on East 6th, 800 square feet. Glass windows facing the street, polished concrete floors. Marcus designs the logo. "Keep it simple," he says. "Hewitt Creative. Nothing extra." Dark gray letters on a white background. On the first morning, we receive the keys. I stand on the sidewalk looking at my company name printed on the glass door. Marcus says, "Let's go in." I open the door. Inside is still empty. Our footsteps echo lightly on the concrete floor. "We need desks and chairs," he says. I open my phone and make a list of what to buy. No one stands next to me giving instructions. No one hands me a 126-page plan. Just the lease agreement and the keys in my hand. That month, Marcus proposes to me again. "Last time we did this, nothing was clear," he says as we stand on a rooftop bar overlooking the Congress Bridge. "This time we make it official. Not for anyone else." "Okay," I say. We register our marriage at the Travis County Courthouse on a weekday morning. $90 fee. 15 people present. Lorraine wears a navy blazer. Denise brings a homemade cake. No custom-made wedding dress. No imported flowers. After we sign, Marcus says, "At least this time, we do not need a guest list an inch thick." "Good," I say. "Less printing. We eat barbecue nearby. No stage, no host." That afternoon, I return to the office. I open my laptop. I check email. "The contract is signed," Becca says from the desk across the room. "Good. Send the invoice," I reply. The company logo reflects the afternoon sunlight on the glass door. I walk past that door every day and see my name printed clearly on it. No one adjusts a veil for me. No one arranges flowers into place. Just me, the keys in my hand, and tomorrow's meeting schedule already full. Meredith moves to Texas in October. Trent says he received an official invitation from a large hospital system. The word invitation is repeated in family calls. "Not everyone gets invited," my mother says during a FaceTime dinner. "This is a big step," she adds. The colonial-style house in West Hartford goes on the market shortly after. Initial listing price, $1,100,000. 3 weeks pass with no formal offers. My mother says the market is a little slow. The following month, the price drops to $1,050,000. Then it drops again. The for sale sign stands in the yard for weeks. Maple leaves gather at its base. When the contract closes, the final number is $65,000 below the original purchase price. 6% agent commission is deducted directly from the sale. Trent says on the phone, "We will treat it as a relocation cost," Meredith replies. "At least it is liquid." The $250,000 once presented as initial support does not change the market. The number sits on paper, then disappears after the signatures. They arrive in Austin in a rental truck, followed by their own car. They temporarily rent a house in the north of the city. 6-month lease. My mother flies in to help arrange the furniture. One sunny afternoon, the 3 of them drive along Congress Avenue. Meredith sits in the front seat, looking out the window. "That place looks decent," she says, pointing at a glass storefront with exposed concrete floors inside. My mother looks. On the glass door are the words, Hewitt Creative in dark gray. The car slows at a red light. My mother takes her phone from her bag, opens a browser, types the company name. My photo in the About section. Beneath it, the words, Founder and Chief Executive Officer. Meredith leans over to look. Siennas? She asks. Yes, my mother replies. No comment. No comparison. The light turns green. The car moves on. That night, Meredith calls my father. We closed at $9.95, she says. After commission and taxes, it is 8-something. My father asks, what is the new mortgage rate? Close to 7%. That is high. My mother sits at the dining table in the rental house, listening. She does not interrupt. In the following days, Meredith tours houses in Round Rock and Cedar Park. The agent says, with your current budget, the square footage will be smaller than in Connecticut, Meredith replies. We invested a lot into the old house. The agent nods. The market does not care how much anyone invested. Meredith stays quiet and signs the showing list. Over the weekend, my mother and Meredith drive down East 6th to find a place to eat. They park half a block from my office. The glass door is lit. Inside, Becca sits at her computer. Will stands on a chair, hanging a design on the wall. The logo reflects the streetlights. My mother stands on the sidewalk for a few seconds. Meredith looks inside. The office is fine, she says. My mother nods slightly. Let's go, she says. No additional comment. Back in Connecticut, when speaking about Meredith, my mother used to say, a worthwhile investment. In Austin, when relatives ask about the move, she says, the market changes fast. She does not mention the $250,000. She does not mention selling at a loss. At a dinner in the rental house, Trent places his phone on the table. We will be fine, he says. Just need a few months to stabilize, Meredith asks. What if rates do not drop? My mother holds her glass of water and looks down at the table. No question about marketing. No question about when it becomes stable. No comparison. The conversation ends there. A few days later, I receive a short email from Meredith. I heard your office is on East 6th. It looks nice, I reply. If you are free, stop by. No additional sentence. That afternoon, I stand in the office reviewing next month's payment schedule. Client names fill an entire page. Expected transfers are already scheduled. Outside the glass door, pedestrians move along the sidewalk. No one calls me experimental. No one asks when it becomes stable. Just contracts, signatures, and due dates. And somewhere in this city, the Colonial House has closed, the numbers have been deducted, and the market has answered for everyone. The 40 Under 40 Gala is held on the rooftop of a large hotel in downtown Austin on Thursday night. The organizers send a confirmation email 1 week earlier. 412 guests, 15 honorees. Each person has 3 minutes to speak. Revenue and growth figures will be displayed on the LED screen behind the stage. Marcus adjusts his tie as the elevator doors open. Do you remember the order? He asks. Tonight is only numbers, I say. No long story. The open space overlooks the Austin skyline. Round tables with white tablecloths. Name cards printed on thick stock. Sponsor logos embossed in the corner. Lorraine sits at table 3 near the stage. She signals for me to come closer. Keep it under 3 minutes, she says. Do not over-explain. I am not explaining, I reply. The program begins at 7:30. The host reads each name alphabetically. One by one, they step up, receive a crystal plaque, speak briefly about their path. My turn. Founder and Chief Executive Officer of Hewitt Creative. Second-year revenue exceeds $2 million. 312% growth compared to year 1. Current team of 11 full-time employees. Applause fills the room. I stand, adjust the sleeve of my deep red blazer, walk to the stage. The lights are direct. I place the plaque on the podium and look out at the room. 2 years ago, I arrived in Austin with $4,200 and a Honda Civic, I say. Year 1 revenue was $480,000. Year 2 exceeded $2 million. We currently manage 17 long-term clients, Average contract length 6 months. I change the slide. Average ad spend per campaign increased 40%. Conversion rates increased 28%. The rest is spreadsheets and contracts. I pause for exactly 3 seconds. Thank you. Marcus is the first to stand at table 3. A few other tables follow. I step off the stage. On my way back to my seat, I look across the room. In the back near the bar, my mother sits between Meredith and Trent. The champagne glass in her hand pauses midair when the host reads the number 2 million. Meredith leans toward Trent and says something. Trent looks at the LED screen behind me, not at the stage. No one stands at that table. I sit down. Lorraine turns and says, "Solid." "That is enough," I reply. After the awards, guests scatter. A hotel owner from Dallas shakes my hand. "Can you handle a 13-property chain?" he asks. "I am handling 17, I reply. "If we add more, we sign quarterly." He nods and hands me his card. "I want a proposal before Monday." "I will send it Friday," I say. I type into my phone, "Dallas, 13 properties. Follow up." When I return to the table, my mother is no longer there. Meredith and Trent are walking toward the elevators. I do not call out. I continue speaking with an investor, asking about average summer campaign costs. 2 days after the gala, I receive a message from my father. "Big crowd. 412 people," I reply. He asks, "Is the 2 million revenue or profit?" "Revenue," I say. "Net margin this year is about 28%. He does not respond immediately. A while later he texts, "Good. No question about when it becomes stable. No comparison." A week later, Meredith comes to the office. Becca calls me on the intercom. "There is someone named Meredith who says she is your sister." "Send her in," I say. Meredith walks in and looks around. "How much is this place?" she asks. 800 square feet. 3-year lease. She walks to the glass door and studies the logo. "The 2 million is real?" she asks. "This quarter already passed it," I reply. "Year 3 projection is around 3 million if we keep the pace." She nods. "We sold the Connecticut house at a 65,000 loss," she says. "After commission, it was less than expected. The new mortgage rate is close to 7%. I do not answer. She looks at the planning board on the wall listing clients and deadlines. "How many people do you employ?" she asks. 11. She nods once. "Congratulations," she says. "I will send you a proposal if Trent's hospital needs marketing," I reply. She looks at me for another second, then smiles slightly. "Okay." She leaves. That night, I open the fourth quarter forecast. The cumulative revenue is approaching 3 million. Marcus stands behind me. "You good?" he asks. "Tonight it is still numbers," I say. I save the file and shut down the computer. Outside the glass door, the Hewitt Creative logo reflects the streetlights. No $500 envelope. No for sale sign, just signed contracts, invoices sent, and next month's payment schedule. 2 weeks after the gala, Meredith discovers the affair on a morning in the rental house in North Austin. I am not there. I learn about it later from Meredith herself. She says Trent leaves his iPad on the kitchen counter next to the coffee machine. Meredith picks it up thinking she is opening a recipe. The messaging app syncs automatically and opens. 6 months of conversations with a nurse from the same hospital, hotel photos, scheduled meetups, goodnight texts, sent after night shifts. Meredith says she sets the iPad down and sits still on the kitchen stool for about 10 minutes. When Trent walks in, she turns the screen toward him. "What is this?" she asks. Trent looks for a few seconds. "We will talk later," he says. "There is no later," Meredith replies. The conversation ends there. A week later, Meredith files for legal separation. Texas is a community property state. The attorney she meets requires a $15,000 retainer before opening the case. Meredith asks if she can pay in installments. The law office says, "We begin only when the full retainer is received." The Connecticut house was sold at a $65,000 loss. After commission and paying off the mortgage, there is not much left. The $250,000 once mentioned as a foundation is nowhere on the balance sheet. Meredith calls my mother first. I know this because my mother calls me that evening. Meredith is having problems, she says. What kind of problems? I ask. Marital conflict, she replies. She needs money for a lawyer. A few seconds pass. We have already supported a lot, she says. That night, my phone vibrates while I am at the office. I am in a meeting with a new hotel client, so I miss the call. 3 hours later, I listen to the voicemail. Sienna, Meredith says, her voice quieter than usual. I know I do not really have the right to call you, but I do not know who else to call. I set the phone down on the desk. Marcus looks at me. What is going on? He asks. Meredith is separating, I say. He nods. What are you going to do? I do not know yet. The next morning, Meredith sends a longer message. $15,000 retainer. The case needs to be opened immediately. Trent has already hired his own attorney. I just need it temporarily. I read the entire message. I type, I hear you. Nothing more. That evening, Meredith calls again. I answer. I know you are doing well, she says. I do not want to bother you, but I need a little help. What kind of help? I ask. I need the lawyer retainer. I will repay it. Have you spoken to Mom and Dad? I ask. Yes. And? Nothing certain. I look at the fourth quarter forecast open on my screen. I cannot be part of this, I say. On the other end, silence for a few seconds. I understand, Meredith says. The call ends. I do not transfer the money. I do not bring it up again with anyone. A few days later, my mother calls. Meredith is busy handling personal matters, she says. I know, I reply. No further questions. A week later, I hear from my father that Meredith has taken a short-term loan to cover the $15,000 retainer. She begins selling off remaining furniture from the old house. Some pieces are listed online. Some are placed in monthly storage. Trent has moved out of the rental house. The separation case begins to move forward. Meanwhile, my office signs 2 new contracts, a restaurant group in Houston, a boutique hotel in San Antonio. I do not mention Meredith in meetings. I do not tell her story to clients. I do not smile when I hear news about Trent. One evening, as we are closing the office, Marcus asks, "Is it hard to say no?" I lock the glass door and look at the logo reflecting under the streetlights. I am just holding a boundary, I say. That is enough, he replies. Meredith's messages remain on my phone. I do not delete them. I do not move them to archive. They stay there like a timestamp. I do not rescue. I do not step into the fire. I continue sending invoices on time, tracking transfers, preparing quarterly reports. Everyone handles their own part. And for the first time in many years, I am not anyone's backup plan. 3 days after the gala, I receive an email from my father. Not a short text, a long email, clearly divided into paragraphs. He writes that he has replayed my speech several times. He mentions the $2 million. He mentions the $4,200 and the Honda Civic. He writes that he should have stood up at that wedding. He should have said something each time my mother compared the 2 daughters. He does not ask for forgiveness. At the end of the email, he writes that if I agree, he would like to fly to Austin just to have coffee. I read it twice at my desk on East 6th. Sunlight casts the logo's shadow across the concrete floor. I reply, I agree. Just coffee. And slow. We meet at a coffee shop on South Congress. He arrives early. When I sit down, he says immediately, I should have spoken sooner. Today works, I reply. He nods. I do not understand marketing, but I understand a balance sheet. Before leaving, he says, I am proud of you. I nod. I heard you. A few weeks later, I meet my mother at the same place. She wears her familiar beige coat. After a few polite exchanges, she says, Maybe I was wrong. I do not need a speech, I say. I just need you to stop ranking your daughters. She looks down at her teacup. No more comparisons, she says. That is enough, I reply. No argument, no mention of Meredith. No mention of the $250,000 or the house that sold at a $65,000 loss. That night, I open the drawer and take out the $500 wedding envelope. The check is still there, folded in half. I place it on the table, look at the number one more time. then tear it into small pieces and throw it in the trash. I do not keep a single fragment. The company registration I printed 2 years ago is still on the wall. Next to it is the voided $1,750 check I kept. On the shelf sits the crystal plaque from the gala. Late afternoon light passes through the glass and reflects across its surface. 6 months later, my mother and I meet a few more times. No comparisons, no questions about when it becomes stable. My father flies in once more, eats barbecue with Marcus and me. He repeats, "I am proud of you." Marcus slides the plate of meat toward him. "Eat while it is hot," he says. One morning, I stand in the office, now expanded into the unit next door, adding 400 square feet. Next week's calendar is booked 4 days out. Year 3 revenue is approaching $3 million. Marcus brings in coffee. "What are you thinking?" he asks. "Not much," I say. When I started, the account had $4,200. Year 1 was $480,000. Year 2 exceeded $2 million. The rest is contracts, invoices, and coffee meetings without conditions. I lock the office door like every other evening. The logo on the glass reflects the daylight. No more $500 check. Only the numbers I built myself. I used to think the issue was $500. Later I understood it was my position in that room, who stood at center stage, who stood in the kitchen. The day I stopped asking for permission to be acknowledged, things began to change. If you have ever been labeled inside your own family, unstable, unrealistic, not as good as someone else, tell me just one thing. Where are you watching from? And have you ever stood at the edge of the family photo?